All right, so live once again, talking about the things that are going on with me in my life. As I've stated, this is part of my own personal therapy session. It's part of overcoming fears of getting up in front of people. I do I've done a lot of public speaking in my life, but this is different. To be able to get up in front of a camera, it has different elements. It hits on different elements of fear. So that's part of my helping to build up my own self-confidence and hit those points inside of me that are difficult to attain otherwise, and get more comfortable in front of a camera and talking to or at people in this case. So I posted a link to a Patreon that I'm starting. I'm starting it mainly on my own, but also with several other people in mind who have been working with me on this idea in the background. And it's this system called Holographic Archetype Therapy. And to understand where I'm coming from with this and why I'm bringing it out now, you have to understand that I've been in the counseling and mental health industries in one way or another since I was a child. So very young age, my father got help for alcoholism by going into AA. My mother went into Al-Anon, and that kind of just set the stage. Like everyone in my extended family is connected in some way to the counseling, health, and well-being industries, the drug rehab industries. I eventually got into martial arts and had my own school for several years, very successful. And 85% of being a martial arts instructor was actually being a counselor to people. Since then, inside and outside work, everywhere I've gone in Hollywood, I was the go-to guy for every department. My nickname was Papa Tony. I was literally everyone's counselor, and kept a lot of people from walking off set and damaging their careers that way. And at some point, just being on Facebook, I get a lot of strangers, which is weird to say strangers because, we make these friend connections and then we don't actually fulfill them sometimes. But it is so common in my life for complete strangers, especially on the internet, to come up to me. But don't think it doesn't happen like on a bus or at a park or at a public restroom. It does. Complete strangers come up to me and go, "Look, I don't know why I'm doing this. I've never done it before, but there's something about you that makes me feel like I need to tell you my life story. I feel like I know you. Here's all this stuff I did. Here's all this stuff I'm holding in. Here's stuff that was done to me. Here's how I feel like a villain. Here's how I feel like a hero that was unappreciated. Here's how I feel like a victim now." And so I've done a lot of retracing my own steps to better understand myself, and done a lot of observation, which is what writers do. We observe human behavior. We observe how people act and react to things. And that's how we are able to craft stories and character interactions that feel real, is because they're all based off of the dance that we see people doing all day long. And in order to craft a story where you send a character into that same hell and then bring them out in a way that's satisfying, is really the same thing that you're doing in counseling, only you're helping someone get there on their own. And so through that, I picked up lots and lots of tools on my own, because a lot of mental health work is self-work, but I've always felt like the tools we're given are lacking. And a big part of that is just because of the industry. We have an industry that is distorted by the need to sell more pharmaceuticals. And most of the people in the industry who have good intentions are in some way beholden in their practice to that. We have distortions that are created by the need to pay off school debt, often with a degree that means nothing, because the person who obtained it was so busy with other things in their life while they were trying to learn this stuff that they're just doing it robotically. And every time a new DSM gets released, you have another handful of things that are just normal human behaviors and normal human neuroses that are now now have a pharmaceutical component that is treating the symptoms and not treating the underlying roots of what's going on. So through not having financial access to the medical industry for a long time, I was forced to create a lot of self-healing practices. And for a long time, I just assumed that those self-healing practices were just my own thing. I went through a time where I was trying to, like desperately to get people interested so they would just come talk to me and say like, hey, this is what you can do. Combine that with juggling lots and lots of people who are always needing something, wanting something, and then whether or not it's your intention, getting to a point where if you don't respond to someone, then they think that it's because you don't care. And it's really because, like, even right now, I'm probably juggling 6 to 8 different conversations with people who are going through things. And all these patterns are sort of coming together. And I went back through all my notes and it finally just clicked. And I'm like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I've been doing all the time. Like, here I am. I'm on 2-week sick leave, at least, maybe more, from work because I've gotten so sick from carrying all these burdens, primarily from work. And it's not my connection to people because this is what I love doing. This is my passion. So before anyone says, oh, well, I wrote Tony and, you know, I need to back off. No, that's not what I'm saying. I just need to create something so that my time is valued without people feeling like I'm trying to pharmaceutical industry them, you know, and commit highway robbery to get them to, you know, pay me for my time. I know my time is valuable. I have decades and decades of experience doing this in various industries with people in Hollywood who, if I had the freedom to give their names, you would recognize them off the bat, but I'm not going to do that because it's all private. What I want to do is offer my services and put it out there like, hey, this is me. This is what I do for people. This is what I'm good at. Now I have a system that can help me walk through the invisible problems that are playing at your mind, all that social programming that's created, all that family programming that's created, that distorts the way you interact with the world and makes the way you move less efficient. An example would be you have, let's say your bank account is about to go overdraft, right? And you know if it does, you're going to have a bunch of overdraft fees. But you also know that Christmas is coming up, and if you don't buy a gift for your child, then they might think you don't love them. If someone else finds out about it, they'll find out that, or they'll decide that you don't love your child. And then your parents will think you're not a good parent. And then it just kind of cycles up until you're doing all these things that don't make legitimate sense to prove to people that you're worthy of their love. And it's really, really hard to get out of that straitjacket once you're in it. And I'm still doing it. I'm still doing the magic trick, but I have so many tools to share with people. And what I want to do is, instead of creating a dependency, you know, where people have to come back constantly or do month to month or whatever, what I want to do is just like create a program where, you know, I work with someone, or one of the people I've trained works with someone for a set amount of time, for a certain amount of sessions, teaches them to do this on their own. You know, the mental gaming, the holographic projection, going through the archetypes to work your way back to the pure self so that you can weed your ego, basically. All that stuff can be done on your own. And once you know how to do it, you can teach anyone how to do it, and just find a partner and say, hey, let's go through this. Let's play the game. You know, it's super simple. And, you know, it does take some practice and homework, but now I think I have a good enough grasp on it that I can explain to anyone how to do it. And so I want to offer that. I want to offer myself that way, rather than having kind of like the wide open door where anyone can hit me up at any time and then is in a state of misery until they get a response, which is wound up by the fact that they're waiting for a response, because now it's like they've given their power over to someone else and say like, hey, help me get out of this situation. So then it becomes worse. This way I can say, okay, here's the door. my door is wide open. I'm not trying to just like create a cash cow for me or anything. What I want to do is I want to create an open door for anyone who's interested in this and anyone who's ever thought like, hey, I want to have a counseling session with or without Tony, but with the industry, whatever, but doesn't have the money to do it or doesn't have the time because they have to work around the schedule of, the system. They have to work around that scheduling or they have to drive there. I'm doing all this from Skype and I'm doing it for my own personal edification, for my own personal joy at the same time. So if anyone is interested in doing that, like I said, all we're going to do is Skype. We'll sit down and we'll talk, we'll joke, we'll laugh. I'll explain to you more in depth how it works. If that sounds something that would be interesting to you, again, my time is valuable. Normally on almost anything I do, I make about $20 to $40 an hour. And I think I'm worth that. I do make a lot less than that in my day job, ironically, which is part of the problem. I'm not plugged in to where my talents lie. And this is where one of my talents lies. And if you're out there, if you're feeling stress or have stress that's bad enough that you're starting to have a stress-related disorder or an undiagnosed neurological disorder, or even a diagnosed neurological disorder, I am proof positive that my own techniques have worked for me. And I have been able to get rid of quote unquote incurable diseases that were a life sentence. And all my symptoms are gone. That doesn't mean that everyone's going to have the same results, but I am willing to bet that you will find some relief. And I bet every single one of you that's out there that's on this chat right now is feeling it in one way or another. With the way our world is structured, with the way that we're constantly out there trying to get these symbols, these credits that represent our value that then say, oh, we're worthy enough to survive in this society. Like, please give us these shinies so that we can get food and shelter. Like all of that stuff just bends your mind so badly, and it affects your relationships and it affects all your decisions. And I want to help people with that, because even when I go on Facebook, like I see patterns very well, and I see everyone talking and using the same language, but speaking different language here and different language here. And that's because intellectually and emotionally, we're so pulled down by the gravity, by the weight of our daily lives, that we cannot focus on actually hearing what the other person wants and why they feel we are either the obstacle or the gateway to getting that. And that's where a lot of the result of conflict comes. So anyway, I wanted to put that out there. I'm going to keep putting that out there. I'm going to keep selling myself, because I know that I have this value. I know that I've done this thousands and thousands of times with people. I'm not doing it sleepwalking through it and doing it on automatic. I know what I'm doing and what my intentions are. So if that sounds interesting to anyone, I will keep putting up links to Patreon. Like I said, it's very primitive, at least in the interface right now. But essentially the idea is, if you're interested, just hit me up with a PM or say something in this chat. I'll reach out to you. We'll schedule an hour and just sit down and catch up, and I'll explain how this works. We'll try it a little bit. And I think within 3 to 9 such sessions, anyone should be able to do this on their own. I would say with 3, but since I haven't done it in this way and actually scheduled it out, like, okay, we're going to reserve this hour for this and this hour for this and see where that goes. So that's why I want to experiment with it right now. And it's all going to be on donation basis too. So you're not obligated to anything if you want to try it. It's basically like, if you like this, if you see value in it, this is what I would normally ask, but you tell me what it's worth for you. So any questions, shoot them my way. More than happy to answer anything. And always want to connect with everyone. Always want to connect with everyone. It's just a matter of like not having enough hands and ears and mouths, which I'm sure is somewhere in the pantheon of Japanese hentai. So on that note, Have a great Sunday, and I'll see you in the next video.